Explain a little bit about how Williams Memorial Services Limited may kind of take a different approach to the pre-planning process as opposed to more some of the older line funeral homes in the area. It seems like we're kind of a little bit more aggressive in that regard. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit for us, Sean?
Well, I guess we kind of seen a need, and we aggressively attacked it by first of all us being insurance agents.
Both licensed.
Both licensed in the state of Illinois.
Hallelujah.
And thank you, Jesus. That test is quite difficult, but we got through it, and we're providing insurance over here at the funeral home. And that being said, out of the the 30 cases that we didn't have, at least 24 or 25 of them did not have insurance. And so we've seen how that strained families and it almost shattered families because of not being able to provide those funds and being able to come together with those funds. But we've seen families put it together, and I mean, quite graciously. And so I commend those families that just kind of sit around that problem and come up with great solutions, financially to be able to cover costs. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to do, is start providing that means of economic support, and that's an insurance.
Kind of like an empowerment, if you will. Just we knew that getting into a crowded marketplace in the funeral industry and in Champaign-Urbana, that we would have to need a competitive advantage. Wouldn't you say, Sean?
Yes, and being younger and not really being affiliated with the funeral firm before. I've been to many of funerals, and kind of got a dry run in the funeral home business with Mr. Hambrick, and so I've lost 5 brothers. I've lost my dad, and lost my ex-wife, and my sister, and so and then about 2 years ago, lost my best friend. And then playing that role, Mr. Hambrick let me, and his mom let me play a hands-on role with that particular funeral service. And so we're looking at the funeral home business as I would as a customer.
Sure.
And so as an owner, I'm still looking in the eyes of a customer, and what would I want for my loved ones, and entrusting us that we can provide that service, in which we do a great job with. I mean, we got ministers on staff, and we have we got a musical team, and that we provide, and so
grief counselor.
Yeah, we got grief counselors that for the aftercare part, and so and I don't think that's being offered in a lot of different areas. So I think all those components are needed. All those components are needed because everybody takes grief differently. And so providing all those, somebody might get healing through a song, when others might have to go through some type of counseling, some form of counseling, and so I think we kind of covered that area pretty aggressive and gracious.
I wanted to kind of ask you about that competitive difference because we market, most of our insurance side comes to us. We're somewhat passive, but at the same time we will not hesitate to let a client know, or someone we run into on the street know, hey, we got some pre-planning, we got last rites, we got burial insurance, we got life insurance and health insurance. But my whole thing with bringing that up and kind of continuing to elaborate is we don't want people in the community to become complacent because insurance isn't being offered to them. Wouldn't you say? Not out of sight, out of mind. Just because other funeral firms aren't doing that, does that mean that that's not the right way to do things? As we study national firms, say like Golden Gate Funeral Home and some different national firms.
Well, I think those guys have seen that need. Those more aggressive firms have seen that need and took advantage of those markets because, I mean, we talked about being underserved, but some of these communities are not served at all.
Right.
And so we've seen that, and seeing that being an opening for us to be able to go around and talk to families and be able to educate families, and that's one of the reasons why we want to do this television program, to be able to educate people on some business that's pretty much not talked about until it happens. And we try to get it in and get it out, do it as fast as possible. And I just think that families need to know the information and be able to act off that information.
Yeah, yeah. We just like as an example today when a young man said, you know, I want to do the pre-planning thing. I want to do insurance. I don't want to have to wait on my aunties and my uncles in Chicago to take care of me. I want to go out right. And we shared with the young man just how inexpensive premiums really are. Can you kind of talk about the affordability aspect and that, say, from anywhere from $25 to $75 a month, depending on your financial needs or economic status, you can really solve that issue. Can you kind of talk about that, kind of lower the barrier for folks out there?
Well, you know, it's some people look at it as another big responsibility when really it's just a small responsibility to pay that small premium, and you can have that money at the time when your loved one passes away to be able to cover that cost. And and then you can also have money for maybe you leave a kid behind and you need money for college or some other things, you know, to be able to cover the cost of a loved one and that lack of income that might have lost, that the family had lost at that time. So that insurance will cover that, and it won't cripple the family. The family can still go on.
So the family can mourn and not be under economic stress and pressure to really just kind of make a circle fit into a box, if you will. Is that correct?
Correct. And so that all helps toward that healing process. You know, I mean, it's kind of hard when you have a bill, an outstanding bill, and the stress of an outstanding bill, and the loss of a loved one, and so that's just too overwhelming for families. So that pretty much kind of covers us on the pre-needs, and I would just like to say that I would hope everyone would take this advice and try to get some type of insurance into place.
Sure.
And
but at the same time, Sean, we don't want to mislead families, because we are the only Champaign-Urbana funeral home that deals with Medicaid and public aid cases. So let's just kind of talk about, we're talked about pre-needs, but let's just talk about how we take an inclusive approach at Williams Memorial Services when dealing with all families, whether you have insurance or not.
Oh yes, what we do, every call is important. Every call is important. I've just talked with a older lady. Her son passed away, and she told me right off the bat she didn't have any money.
Sure.
But that we still want to help this individual into a healing process, and even if we didn't do the services, and we still want to help them in that process and let them know that we appreciate them for just picking up the phone and giving us a call. And Mother, she was very happy, and we ended up getting her in touch with another firm that partnered with us and was able to get some services provided for her, even though they didn't have any insurance or didn't have any money. And so it's great people out there with big hearts.
Well, great. And so I guess I wanted to kind of bring that up to you, Brother Williams, just so families don't get disillusioned by the fact that if there's not an insurance product in place, or a pre-planning, or cash, or stocks or bonds in place for this last expense, that there are some ways to ensure that the services can go on. Can you kind of give us a little bit of feedback in your experience as a funeral home owner of how families are able to still get the ball rolling even without having insurance in place, and how we've been able to succeed by memorializing loved ones in that proper way even without a product?
Well, you know, we offer various different products. Traditional funeral home is one of them, and then if something that's a little bit cheaper, that seems more popular nowadays, is cremation. But that can be as much as a funeral service, depending on how you want to memorialize your loved one. But so we'll talk about cremations, and we can offer direct cremations, and we can also do cremations, but we can also do a viewing
and a
memorial service, and then do cremation process afterwards, after that memorial service.
Sure.
So it's a very large variety of different products that we can kind of put in place for a family to make it affordable for that family.
So typically, say if my perception is that, mom always wanted that traditional funeral service, but mom didn't really put back, save those beans in the can, so to speak. How much can we accomplish for a family by choosing a cremation versus a traditional funeral service while still having the elements of a traditional funeral? Just how much can that save a family as far as money wise?
Well, you're looking at the difference between somewhere between one service costing $4,000 or $5,000 opposed to another service costing $10,000. So you kind of slashing the pie in half, and so but and at the same time, I mean, depending on which firm that you use
Sure.
and that type of thing. So I mean, we do have some other great firms out there also,
Yeah.
and so just meeting your funeral home owner, your funeral director, and kind of discussing those added details.
Sure.
And and I always stress pre-planning. So
Sure.
talking to that
Sure.
funeral home owner, that funeral home director, before that time, comes, and you probably know what type of ballpark figure that you're going to be facing.
Sure. So, do you encourage people that are in the precarious situation of having to bury a loved one? Do you encourage cost comparing, such as a commodity buy, or do you encourage a family really to get close to one particular funeral home owner and just kind of walk with faith and just see that through? Or what do you advise a family to do, or a family member more specifically that's been thrust into this role of, say, purchasing goods and services for a passed loved one?
You know, I take this funeral business much more to heart than I would if I was going to buy a car.
Sure.
I mean, it is the legacy of your life, the character, and all the nuts and bolts of somebody's life.
Sure.
And so, in trying to bring out that memorialization, I think that you shouldn't. I wouldn't. You should watch costs, but I don't think cost should be the main thing that you focus on and home in on when you're trying to memorialize your loved one. I mean, mom, she lived a great life, and so it's various different things that I would do for her. I wouldn't be trying to cut her obituary down. I would try to make it as big as possible to make sure that my mom is really that great person that I know for her to be.
She's your queen.
She's my queen. She's my Elizabeth Taylor.
Right.
And
Sure.
and memorializing her, I want to put her right where she should be, and that's nice, and her outfit nice, and
Sure.
her hair nice, and
Makeup.
yeah, and her makeup's nice, and her jewelry's
Yes.
nice, and maybe put one of her hats on her, and she love her hats, and so and saying those type of things, when it's a time for your loved one, I think that you definitely should you should think more around how are we gonna make dad's legacy and character and everything entailed within that service.
So basically, you're saying don't go cut out coupons and bring them into a funeral home and say, hey, did we get $800 off? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I'm kind of itching around there. I mean, you start comparing prices from Illinois to state on the internet, and you kind of getting getting the Walmart unit, and we've been educating ourselves on different products, various different products, and what's sealed and what's not sealed, and so and people not knowing the business or the industry, they might not know those final details, and and it's about like tires, you go, you gotta get what you pay for, and so on. But we ran into people, and I know personal friends that say, hey, look, I'm not going to throw this money in the ground, but I mean, but it's really not being thrown in the ground. It's to preserve this or for your loved one, and so I think that's very important.